Alright, enter Shadow I mean, not Aerodactyl, Shadow Skarmory. So Shadow Skarmory, the reason why I build Aerodactyl is because Aerodactyl, you actually resist those rock throws, but Shadow, anyways, I'm not done with the intro yet. As you see, it flies, it's cool, it's literally one of the coolest mons in all the Pokemon Go franchise, and if you played Silver or Gold, this thing was like your baby. I personally got, like, one of my first 6 in my party when I first played Silver and Gold was a Skarmory, and I love Skarmory. And it's very powerful in Go Battle League and also for the Flying Cup, especially when it's given Shadow, especially when it's evil, it's mean, it wants to kill you and everything you love, and it wants to take your elo for the Flying Cup starting in November. Anyways, the reason why Skarmory is so good is it has really high defense. You're not going to hit a Skarmory, yeah, it has really high defense, okay? It can take a lot of damage. It can also dish out a lot of damage. As you see, it's a Steel Flying type, has an incredibly good moveset, and it maxed out at 2108, which means it maxed out pretty high. Because of that, you have a Flying Fortress tank that has been relevant in Go Battle League since Season 1, and it's going to be good for the Flying Cup, especially as a Shadow. Now, that's kind of weird because the reason why it's weird that Shadow Skarmory is better than Flying Cup is because you minus 20% defense for 20% more attack. Because of that fact, since Shadow Skarmory does have a high defense, you're giving up more defense than you would attack. Just because of simple math. You know, 20% of high defense versus 20%, yeah, it's weird. However, that extra attack does give Shadow Skarmory some extra power. So the reason it's so good is because it's only weak to electric types. You're not going to see a lot of Moltres in Flying Cup, so don't ask me about Moltres. However, you will see Zapdos, you will see Emolga, so that's why the only weakness that Skarmory carries is actually against the electric against everything that tries to zap you to death, basically. And it does resist, it's actually neutral to rock types. That's what makes it really good. So Rockto Aerodactyl is, that's why Steel Wing Skarmory beats Aerodactyl, is because it does resist those rock throws. So it has a strong matchup against Aerodactyl. And it's also resists flying types because of the steel typing. So you resist flying types and your only clear weakness in the Flying Cup is electricity. That means it's really good. Expensive, now it's expensive to power up. 75k dust. And because it maxes out at about level 25, 24, it's not cheap with the Shadow. So this isn't cheap at all, and it's hard to find. You're not exactly going to be able to walk outside and find, hey, look! It's a Steel Rocket Gruntstomp. Hey, can you give me a really good Shadow Aerodactyl? Yeah, Shadow Skarmory. Or not Aerodactyl, but Shadow Skarmory. Well, Shadow Aerodactyl is nice too. But can you give me a really good Shadow Skarmory? If you do got a good one, I hate you, I'm jealous, and it's really good, so you should probably use it. Or think about using it after you watch this video. Now, for Skarmory on Shadow version, as you see here, it's weird because it's actually better than regular Skarmory. Not by a lot, though. As you see here, it does rate number 3 overall. It beats regular... The reason being is because what makes Shadow Skarmory really interesting, it beats regular Skarmory. Or it can beat it. That's probably the more accurate one. In the attacker category, it's actually better than regular Skarmory. Overall, it's actually better than Skarmory too. As you see, Shadow Skarmory ranks at number 5. It's able to beat regular Skarmory and still beats Aerodactyl, so that's what makes it nuts. Now, that's what makes it weird as well, because like I mentioned in the Go Hub analysis, you give up defense for a little bit of attack, but as you see, it does matter. It does matter. Now, Shadow Skarmory in the lead does take on as the number 2. It's barely better than the original version. So after we run the Matrix, you're going to see a little clear reason of like why they're not too different, but why they matter. Because in certain scenarios, Shadow Skarmory can beat, well, actually in one scenario. Actually certain scenarios, but like the more common scenario, like you'll see in the closer, regular Shadow Skarmory, as you see, beats regular Skarmory by like 1 position. It literally beats Shadow Skarmory in regular Skarmory in by like 1 position. As you see here, it's actually better as a Switch, way better than Skarmory in the Switch. But for the most part, it's a one-up for... It's an upgrade. It's an upgrade, but we'll see more clear on the Matrix of why it's an upgrade versus the rankings. Now it does, now like I said, the fact that it can beat its cousin, its regular version cousin, it makes it really good. So we're going to find out in the Matrix just what else it beats and what's the difference in the meta with the regular Skarmory versus Shadow Steel Birthing. Alright, so I put regular Skarmory and Shadow Skarmory together. You want to use Steel Wing, don't use any other moveset. Just use Steel Wing, because Steel Wing allows you to beat Aerodactyl. Air Slash has use, but a lot of things will, well, not a lot of things, but Air Slash doesn't do well against Aerodactyl. And Mirror Skarmory, so just use Steel Wing Skarmory. As you see, I have the Shadow and the regular version. We're going to run the 2 shield, and we're going to see just how we do in the Matrix. So here we go. In the 2 shield, you beat Aerodactyl. You also beat Articuno and Gligar and Togekiss. Now, if you notice, you do lose against a lot of relevant leads. You simultaneously knock out with regular Skarmory in the 2s with Shadow. And it's really here's what's interesting. As you see here, Shadow, it's really interesting. So against this Skarmory matchup, this is probably the regular one. Shadow versus regular Skarmory. You beat it in the 0s. So this is what's really interesting with Shadow versus regular one. Now, in the 2s, you do lose against, well, it's a simultaneous knockout. So technically you do lose, but you don't lose. You know what I mean? So in the 2 shield, Shadow Skarmory isn't super powerful. And see, in the 1 shield, Shadow Skarmory is able to take down Aerodactyl, Altaria, Articuno. It basically the same matchups in the 2s. Doesn't flip anything. A big notability is that Shadow Skarmory loses to Zapdos, and it loses to Zapdos, Emolga, and Mantine. It does have a lot of weaknesses, so Shadow Skarmory's main purpose is to beat Aerodactyl, for the most part. In the 1 shield, as you see, it pretty much wins and loses the same scenarios as the 2 shield. Now, in the 0 shield, this is where it gets kind of interesting. In the 0 shield, you lose against Aerodactyl, but regular Skarmory does beat it. However, in the 0 shield, if you look here, you actually beat regular Skarmory. So in the 0, Shadow Skarmory can take on its regular cousin. Now, it's really weird. It's really weird because in the 1 shield, regular Skarmory wins. But it's like I said, it's really weird. The keyword is you can beat Skarmory, but it's just really dependent. In other words, Shadow Skarmory is really good, but as you see, compared to its regular version cousin, there's not too much of a sizable difference. And there are some matchups you flip and you don't flip. Now, if you give Shadow Skarmory shields, you basically only lose to regular Skarmory and Emolga. So you lose against Skarmory, regular Skarmory, and Emolga. But other than that, you beat everything else. Up a shield. That's the 1 to 0s. Now, in the 2 to 0s, you should beat everything. You do beat everything. So with 2 shields, anything up 2 shields will defeat whatever it's in front of it. So as you see, Shadow Skarmory does beat everything in the 2s. In the 2 to 1s, you beat everything but it's basically like your what is it? Like kind of like the 1 shield scenario, but you lose against you pick up losses. So you're gonna lose against Emolga regardless. Mantine, Skarmory, Zapdos. Mantine, Skarmory, and Zapdos. So Shadow Skarmory, on paper it looks really good, but it's kind of like weird. Actually, it's really weird. So that's kind of, that's sharp. I give it a 7 out of 10. Yeah, it's a 7 out of 10. I would give it a higher rating, but it's just expensive to get. And if you see here, it doesn't dominate a lot of matchups. Shadow Skarmory doesn't. Skarmory was really interesting as a lead because it does beat it does beat Aerodactyl. So that's pretty much your number 1 reason. It beats Aerodactyl. Now, if you don't get matched up against Aerodactyl, it loses against a lot of matchups. But the reason why it's a 7 is because it's still really good. You give it shield advantage, it will wipe a lot of things except for Emolga. But just because of that, it's really risky to use. So Shadow, and it's hard to get. You're not, like I said, you're not going to walk outside and see a Shadow Skarmory stop in front of you and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a Shadow Skarmory. And there's the issue of whether you get a good IV or not. So is it really good, or is it just, it depends. So Shadow Skarmory, interesting enough, as you see, this is a summary. Shadow Skarmory is really good. It does belong in the ranking, however, it's very tricky to play. Now, don't get me wrong, it's good, but it's just really tricky to play because, there are other better options here. you can make a better, like, meta not having Skarmory in your team. There's a lot of, like, as far as team comp go, if your pure target is to target Aerodactyl, like, yes, Shadow Skarmory is powerful up shields, however, it's very tricky to play. Very tricky to play. Because of because of difficulty and everything, I can't give it a higher rating. It does belong where it belongs, but there are other things in this meta, like, there are other things that are better to replace it with. Like, Aerodactyl, Mantine, and Zapdos already are, like, in my opinion, would be a much better, like, team comp than it would be, which, even though Shadow Skarmory ranks at number 5, it's not, like, for me, it's just not, like, by my analysis, the only thing that Shadow Skarmory, it really pluses is that it beats Aerodactyl. Now, this matchup against regular Skarmory, this is CMP dependent, so that's not reliable. So you have to win CMP in order to beat Skarmory. That's why it's so confused. If you run the sim on PvPoke right now, if you look at what beats what, this is CMP. So whatever wins CMP is going to beat you in the mirror. So in order for your Shadow Skarmory to beat regular Skarmory, you need to win CMP. But that's how you win the mirror anyways, because you win CMP, so. If you don't know what CMP is, it basically means your charge move fires before their charge move because your stats are higher. Or you have a higher attack product. Either one. But yeah, that's it. Shadow Skarmory, it's really good, but I wouldn't recommend you use it. Like I said, there's better leads out there. There are better things out there that I can use for Shadow Skarmory. It's the number 2 lead in the game, but you're mostly targeting just Aerodactyl. If they lead with Mantine or Zapdos, you do lose. And you lose. So it's kind of just really tricky to play. You're gonna be using Shadow Aerodactyl. You're gonna use Shadow Skarmory a lot to counter Aerodactyl. That's basically what you're using. What you're using Skarmory for. It does beat a majority of the meta up once. However, it does die to Emolga against practically every scenario. So you want to stay from Emolga and Zapdos at all costs. You do beat Zapdos sub scenarios, but as you see, you just get whipped by Emolga unless you have 2 shields. You need 2 shields to beat a flying electric squirrel. But that's basically it. You guys have a great day. Again, I hope this really helped you guys out. Especially for those of you that are really looking at your Shadow Skarmory and you're like, do I want to power you up and waste you? No. Don't do it. Shadow Skarmory might be good in regular Go Battle League, but for the Flying Cup, it's not that great. Not worth it. Don't power it up. It's good, but it's not that good. You guys have a good day.